All right, guys, so simple tools. Depending on who you talk to, simple tools are essential for discipleship, and others say, no, you can get too fixated on tools and enter into methodology or idolatry of your methods or tools. Well, at the end of the day, we want to see movement, and tools are very helpful. In fact, maybe even essential for getting the DNA of multiplying movement from one generation to the next. So where do tools fit, especially in the place of multiplying networks? Today, we're going to unpack that idea. That's coming up. Hey there, guys. Welcome back to the Multiplying Disciples channel. My name is Mark. And if you're new with us, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button and the bell notification. All of that helps to make sure this gets in your inbox so that you have what you need to set you up for success in multiplying disciples and reaching your region for the glory of Jesus. So today we're going to talk about simple tools. In recent videos, I've been sharing with you about the role of short-term discipleship in building confidence and competence. It is absolutely essential. These are the train tracks that multiplying movements run down. Is a lot of people who have got simple tools in their hands to build confidence and competence. And at the end of the day, a disciple, as they're getting started, they need to be told what to do, and they need clarity on how to do it so that they're doing things well and in line with the methods and the theology of Jesus and the early church. Now, to do that, we introduce this idea of simple tools oftentimes in disciple-making movements. Now, those can become controversial. This video is not about the controversy of tools, but I do just want to talk about that, especially recently in different circles I've run in. A lot of people are using this word methodology or idolatry of methods, and that can be a problem when we begin to make our methods the definition of success, or you've got to do it a certain way. All of those different things begin to become barriers to actually empowering the everyday believer with the priesthood of the believer, to being able to do the stuff, which is what the tools are supposed to do in the first place. They can begin to become the barrier when you have to do it a certain way. And if you do these certain things, you're going to get results. That is all unhelpful. However, here's what I want to address in this video today. If you're unfamiliar with that, you can just fast forward through all of that, and let's just talk about the role of tools in movement. So, as you are getting started and making disciples, you can use all kinds of different tools, right? There's different ways to share the gospel or to train that disciple in front of you to share the gospel that might make sense for their culture, for a specific people group or that context. And throughout history, there's been different tools that have emerged. Many years ago, there was the Romans Road way to share the gospel. More recently, 3 circles is common and being used widely. And is one right, one wrong? Absolutely not. In fact, you could train different methods to your disciples. The problem becomes once you want to go from this place of addition, seeing new disciples made, to multiplication, where those disciples are making disciples. Now, it becomes very key, in fact, critical to multiplication to identify specific tools and build DNA within the network that is emerging. So as you begin to multiply disciples, as you begin to see churches emerge out of the harvest, and you begin to see this little fledgling network begin to emerge, the thing that you don't want to happen is too many new ideas and too many ways to do things be introduced too soon. If too many new ideas and too many ways to do things get introduced, it's unhelpful. If you've got too many different ways that people go about achieving that result of sharing the gospel, for example, or making a disciple, that new disciple becomes confused. And you can begin to have what happened in 1 Corinthians, where Paul had to come against this idea of people saying, I follow Apollos, I follow Paul, I follow Peter, I follow these different people. And there becomes this tribalism that can begin to just destroy what God was trying to build in the new believer. So there's that one potential outcome, that there begins to become this alignment around personality or around a specific method or different way, and you don't end up getting multiplication. So that can be problematic if there's too many new ideas introduced too soon, and it begins to destroy. Here's the other thing: it destroys confidence and competence in that new believer. When you're starting out with somebody, they need it to be so simple that they know what to do. When you ask them how to share the gospel, they don't know 10 different ways to share the gospel. They know the one that's been trained to them, and they feel confidence in it. That is good, and that is important, because then they're going to train somebody else in that. And then when you begin to think about it, they're going to become a part of a church and maybe even a network now that's emerging of churches that has a common language around a way to share the gospel. Not the only way, but this simple tool becomes effective in building confidence and competence with the believer, with the church, and then with the network. Everything within movements has got a scale to continue to grow. So within that network, you want to also begin to see confidence and competence emerge, right? And confidence and competence is going to get undercut if too many people, too many different leaders are introducing too many different ways to do things. So as you're getting started with people, you might do some research and development. You're trying to figure out, okay, what's going to work in this people group. But once you get some traction and once you start to see some multiplication of disciples, and especially once you get to that point where the churches start to multiply, you're going to want to solidify these are the ways that in this network right now, we are sharing the gospel and we are engaging. If you have too many, and discipling and making leaders, all of those things, if you have too many different things introduced, again, that's going to destroy what God was beginning to do in that multiplication. Now, over time, as that network begins to mature, it's going to be helpful to introduce some new ideas. In fact, it's going to be critical because that network is going to begin to come up against some barriers, come up against some challenges. Every network, every move of God hits a point where it's no longer multiplying. It's no longer seeing the fruit that it saw at first. Now it's important to bring in some outside ideas and some outside people to begin to help to problem solve around those things. And what they have when they begin to problem solve is common language, because that network has begun to form out of using common tools and out of using some common language and some common understanding of how to do things. Now when they're coming together to problem solve around the barriers that are beginning to emerge in that culture or in that context, they have common language to attack those barriers with together. They have a starting point. And so it's critical to start out with that, but then there comes a point where it's actually more important to begin to introduce people to other ways to do things and introduce them to outside vision. So that's maybe another video, but one thing that can be helpful once it hits this point where it's beginning to get some traction, it's a multiplication, is the leaders, not everybody, but the leaders, to begin to touch base with what's happening in some other similar situations and networks where other disciple makers are seeing some fruit. And now they're beginning to get some vision for some ways to tweak what's happening within. But too many people getting exposed to too many different things too fast, everything's going to collapse and fall apart before it actually gets a chance to take off and multiply. So I hope that's helpful for you. And if you're new to discipleship and you're new to tools and new to disciple making in the first place, just start with using what you've been trained in. Use the simple tools until you understand the why behind the tools. Until you've seen some multiplication, just use what you've seen in the lives of others. But then as that begins to get traction, you begin to see some multiplication, that's where this video becomes helpful to you. So come back to this video if that's not where you are. And if it is where you are, I want to encourage you that there is a place for tools. There is a solidifying of the DNA that happens when we use simple tools. And then there's a point at which it becomes a hindrance to multiplication. So you need to, as a leader, discern where are you and what do we need to do to help things multiply and to cultivate that little plant as it's beginning to grow, but then at some point help it to multiply beyond the boundaries that it started in. So hope that is helpful to you. And I pray that for you as a disciple and your disciples in your churches and networks, that you would see confidence and competence begin to grow until that network is multiplying other networks and churches multiplying into churches until there is no place left that hasn't heard. Hope that's helpful to you guys, and I will see you guys next time.